Thanks for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. You can find us wherever you find podcasts or listen to music. When you have an opportunity, please give us a 5-star review, write a little note, tell us how we're doing. We really appreciate it. It helps us keep this thing going. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us at Facebook at Hidden Tracks. Instagram is at HiddenTracks99, and if you'd like to send in submissions or talk to us or give us any feedback about what we're doing, our email is myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the first ever SimulPodcast with Hidden Tracks and
the Stolen Hours Podcast.
My friend Dennis Dalelio, photographer, teacher, writer, father, artist, has ventured into the podcasting world. Very excited. We were supposed to do this a long time ago. He was supposed to come on mine, but please check out the Stolen Hour podcast. It is real people, real conversation, real stories, and what life is all about. How you doing, Dennis?
I'm good. And I wanted to thank you for setting this up. And today I introduced to everybody on my podcast, Shane Murphy, the host of Hidden Tracks podcast, which is an awesome podcast about music. And for all music lovers, just the range of different musicians he's interviewing, as well as just music fans, where it all started as him being a music fan. And, his day job, this is his passion job, which is this podcast, but his day job is a stormwater engineer. And so it's kind of a perfect match for both of our podcasts to be doing this thing where we do a SimulPodcast.
SimulPodcast.
We're claiming the copyright.
Yeah, we're copywriting SimulPodcast. Simulcast was TV. Now SimulPodcast is two podcasts talking to each other.
Yeah.
So how you doing, man?
I'm good. So it's a week off for me. So this is an early morning interview here, which I'm psyched about. And been doing a lot of stolen hours with my podcast this week. So I know we chatted the other day and kind of set this one up. I thought it'd be fun to do this. And
yeah, it's funny. We talked for about 48 minutes on the phone. So we did our own podcast and didn't record it. So we figured that now was the time to just hit record and do it.
It's funny. I think the time I came here to get the heads up on how to do all this podcast world, we were here for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer, but we stopped recording at some point.
Yeah.
And then we just kept chatting afterwards.
We lost everything.
Which is the normal thing, right? I've only lost everything once on a podcast.
Yeah, I've lost everything. Well, no, twice now. I mean, that's the nature of the business, man. That's what we do. It's hard to constantly everything. I'm a perfectionist. Yeah. You're a teacher, so you are by nature a perfectionist because you have to be. There's no gray area. It's either A or B, right? I mean, it's A, B, C, D, E, or F. The pluses and the minus and the. I mean, to me, all that stuff is bullshit anyway.
Sure, and I found. I mean, as a perfectionist life goes, which, being an artist, being a teacher, sure, you always have this a high standard of what things should be. And you can't let go of that. But as I've learned to say, and this is my motto for life, it's really, your idealism should be your motivation in life, but should never, ever be your judge of reality, because you will just be sad. And this is the reality for my students. So often, they're just learning. And I said, listen, it's okay to be a student. So my perfectionism goes away at this point. But I say, for sure, we want to get here. Here's the gold standard of the best contemporary photographer. Or, this is even your own photograph, that one you made that one time was so good. Let's get there again. But let yourself be a student for a little while. So as we're doing this world of podcasting, we are students for sure.
Yes. I mean, listen, I've said it before on my show that a day without learning something new is a wasted day.
Yes.
That's just how I live my life. I search out information because I want to learn, even if it's a stupid fucking Snapple fact that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. I'm learning something new, which is important to me. It's important it gives me that sense of wonder and finding something new. I embrace it and I enjoy it. That's awesome. Then I get down to sitting down and trying to go through this podcast and edit it when I'm done, and I just have to be happy at the end, which to be perfectly honest, I think I've only been happy out of all my episodes with 2 episodes where I'm like, those were perfect.
Sure.
So yeah, kind of have to scale back your expectations, which is hard to do as a human being.
Sure. And you know, as an artist, you know, I make a painting and it means this, and this to me, and I can explain all day what it means. I've done research. I got this, and this is where my life is in it. But as an artist, I've learned to just put stuff out and see what happens. Often the paintings I don't like are the ones people love and ask for and buy. And then the paintings that I love are in my wall, on my wall in my living room. Surely they're usually these giant things that no one has room for. But there's this idea that, you know, once you put something out there, this is part of why I love the podcast world. It fits right into my documentary training as a photographer. It's this idea that once you put it out there, it is a document of life, this is all real, true stuff, you know, where these are live conversations that are recorded, sure, a little bit edited, but there's this, you know, documentary aspect where we've created something that's for posterity, and people will appreciate it or not. That's awesome. And it's some things within there you might appreciate, and like sometimes people just hit stop. That's fine.
Yeah, it's not for us to choose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing with music, and why music is my life's passion. Really, it is because it's subjective, and it doesn't matter when the artists. I've told artists hundreds of times on this show that. It's not for you. What you're creating isn't for you. Sure. You can't be the judge of your own creation. It's for someone else. And if you put too much pressure on yourself, or if you delete something, I try not to do a lot of editing when I do the podcast, because it's true. It's what you're feeling at the time. It's nature. You said it at that time, and that's fine. Yeah. And it's not for me to judge. My favorite episode of what I recorded isn't someone else's favorite episode. Yeah. And you know, the Rolling Stones, you know, Mick Jagger, his favorite song he recorded isn't someone else's favorite song, because it's subjective, and it's not for you to decide your own creation what it means.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had John Gellings, our friend from our youth, but also very much so a major fine art photographer right now who's doing his thing, you know, and you know, under-recognized for sure. But I had him come into my class as a guest speaker, and the kids, some of them followed them already, so they knew his work. And you know, he's like, he showed this one photograph, and he's like, "This is my favorite photo." He's like, and nobody ever says that they love it. He's like, people say they love all this and this, but he's like, but this is one of my favorites, and it's not something that people really respond to. And I was like, yeah, it's just because that guy's got a bad haircut. I said, you know, but it was like, but yeah, part of his attractions to it, and personal aesthetic is something that does matter, especially as you choose what you're listening to or choose what you're looking at. But in the end, as a creator, it's almost like your personal aesthetic needs to just be pushed down a bit.
It's hard.
Sure. And
it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And even your idealism, like, you know, it's up here. Okay. But you're not going to put anything out if you just stick with that idealistic track, you know, like of, you know, what I want to achieve, and it's not there yet. And if I can edit for another 5 hours, then I'll pull this episode off. Great, whatever. But that's not the nature of this animal here. Podcasting is allowed to be human and also have dignity at the same time, even in its mistakes or its or whatever it is.
Listen, the and, you know, I've listened to my show. It's just like when you record a song, you listen to it 9,000 times before you put it out into the universe. Yeah. And by the time it finally comes out and reaches everybody, you're sick of it. I mean, that's how I get, because I try to figure out, and I'm like, wow, I say this a lot. Yeah. Or I say this a lot. And I'm like, well, fuck it. It's because I mean it. Like it's there. Yeah. It constantly comes out because it's something that is important to me to say, whether it's the slightest little thing. And even transition words, transition words in conversation are hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're learning as we go. Yeah, I mean, I didn't go to a class. I didn't go anywhere to learn anything. I was just like, you know, okay, this is what it's going to be. Yeah, yeah. So, but you learn, and I listen to your podcast, you listen to mine, and we give each other feedback, which is, I think, that's what's important.
Absolutely. And I had the benefit of the Shane Murphy podcasting school, which you were about 6 months ahead of me in terms of your episodes coming out, and so listening to them, right away. I saw your gifts, your passion, which is pretty awesome. And so that's even why I asked you, okay, not only is he's passionate about this, but also like he's experienced pitfalls, most likely. Hey, what's the best way to record these things, whatever. So I just came to you and came into your lair here of music, which is full of posters on the wall and lots of records. And was just kind of impressed by that right away. And I'm like, oh, this is the guy who's to help me here. And also to even be motivated to have you come on to my podcast because of your passion. And
I was passionate about you starting one. I'm happy, and that's one of my things is, the old saying that I'll throw out to you since you are one, but they say those who can't do teach, and I always felt that I could teach certain things that I've learned better than I could actually ever do myself. I really do. I just feel that I can learn something and teach it, but I can't fully perform it to what I've learned, which is hard. Sure.
And I think that takes time, and it also takes an audience to say, no, you did it, my friend. And I think that's the cool thing. And the reality is, Van Gogh's not famous, doesn't sell much in his life, and he dies, and then he's like the most famous artist of all time. There's a great moment too, that whole teach line, those who can't do teach. It's so bogus. Yeah. Because the amount of teachers I know who are phenomenal at what they do, but they chose to do a service, which was really a decision to be a working class individual, a decision to be someone who's working with, people and really in the trenches on some level, to do what they're passionate about, what they can do most likely if they had the motivation or the connections or whatever it is, the resources, the trust fund to support them just to go. Yeah, they would do that. But a lot of teachers grew up in working class households, and they did make it. They are super talented, and they were recognized even. And then a lot of them came out of even people who do it as a second career often come out of a very high paying job that they work 90 hours a week, and they're like, no, I want to go back to like the roots of this, where I found love for this thing, and go teach that love to my students. Yeah. And in the end all, some of the teachers I know are some of the most talented people ever. You think of like the academic world right now that's full of adjuncts. There's this desire to share what I know, and it's not worth the $3,000 people get paid as an adjunct, because it's much more hours than that. But they do it because of a love for sharing this thing. And that's in the reality of, for sure, of what you did for me too, in terms of, sharing your love for this thing and making me feel like, oh, I could do this, and maybe it's worth doing this, which is nice.
There's no reason not to. Yeah. And I mean, it's become easy to do podcasts, to put stuff out there. Same thing with music. That's one of my biggest things that I think music has a huge pitfall right now, where anybody can put out anything. Sure. Anyone can go on Bandcamp and put out whatever, they screamed into a microphone. Sure. It's not good, but they have the platform to do so, which I think is good. Yes. But it also takes away from the truly talented people who are creating, and who are creating based on their love of creation and the hard work they put into it, and trying to, as I say, flush that shit down the toilet constantly until you find clean water, which is finding good music, is really hard to deal with. Yeah. It takes a long time right now to do that.
Yeah, I think, it's so saturated, so I understand what you're saying. Although I do love that, like, Lou Barlow recorded those Centrido sessions and those Sevedo sessions
on a tape,
which he didn't know how to record. And he didn't really fully know how to play. He knew how to play bass for Dinosaur Jr., but he was out of that band, and he started recording these things. I mean, so on some level, I just think if people don't quit, even if they're original recordings that are out there, which is the reality of the internet, it doesn't go away. Yeah. That they will figure out a way to like create something that is worth something. And it's like the idea, I think the quitting is where people lose the motivation and lose the ability to actually truly become successful, even small time, whatever, just in terms of like creating something that's worth being out there and people appreciating it. And the reality is, the day I find, I go to Flipside Records and I ask the guy, yeah, I love Dinosaur Jr. Is there any albums that are like offshoots of that? And he hands me Sebadoh. I'm like, oh, this is so weird. Oh, but it's like that one song that's on the Dinosaur album, which is Lou Barlow's song.
Yeah, Lou Barlow's song.
And it wasn't Why. Just a chill, like what's it called? Polito. This soft, beautiful, folky song. And that introduces me to a whole nother world of music. And what back then was called lo-fi, lo-fi indie music. And it really wasn't, so well recorded or even always exactly, a smooth tune. It was worth something, though, still.
Well, you mentioned successful and the word successful. And I measure success differently, and I'm sure you do too. Absolutely. Because we have humble beginnings. We don't have that trust fund to lean back on in life.
Sure.
We don't have certain things. So success to me is, especially in the music world, if I bought your album, you're successful.
Yeah.
And that's just the way I think about it. And it could be the smallest artist in the world, but you're successful because you got somebody. You're in Montana. You created something beautiful, and I purchased it in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You're successful.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that people ever have that standard to themselves that they are a success.
Yeah.
And I think that's why some of them quit. And I think that's why some of them either give up which is, I tell people, if you give up on something that you're truly passionate about, what else are you going to be passionate about? Because if you're truly passionate about something and you give up on that passion, it's extremely hard to find something else. I've loved music my entire life.
Yeah.
Music, I remember the day it hit me that I knew what music was, and I knew that there was something spectacular about it. And it started my life's journey to now, where I 2.5 years, I struggled with trying to start a podcast talking about music because it was so near and dear, and it's changed my life. It really has in spectacular ways.
Yeah.
And I think that success, people look for that success story. And if you wake up every morning and you do something throughout your day at some point that you're passionate about, for me, it's just listening to music.
Yeah.
My day was a success.
Yeah.
I got to listen to an album today.
Well, let's say, I think of John Mangello. I think it was episode 4 that I recorded. He's an old student, and he said, as a teacher, he says to his students things like, what gives you joy throughout the week? What little moments? And he's like, it could be watching a television show, and he said, you have to recognize that and acknowledge that thing is something you're interested and passionate about to the degree where maybe it could find its face in some sort of, next thing, career, response to you. All of a sudden they become the television review blog, whatever, or vlog, like watching the show and they're doing Mystery Science Theater, 3000, whatever it was
greatest
called.
Shows,
like that
MST3K.
Yeah, that idea of like them talking over a show. I love this because of this and that. Like that passion for something does not have to just be for naught. It could be the thing that leads into the next cool thing you do. And the word success, I have this, one of my art projects, I made some songs. I made a song every day. It was when my son was first born. And it's like the top 40, hits. I put out a best of album that I just give people for free. But anyway, it's, I'm a household name among my own household. Even that to me is valid. Like, this decision for me, I have 5 kids, I have a wife, I have a house. I thought I was going to be dead by 30 years old because of the way I was living. I was just like, at some point I'm hitchhiking around the country. At some point I'm like hiking up mountains without ropes, and I should have ropes because I was just enjoying life. Yeah. Like I was full of life. I was like, constantly had this desire. I thought I'd still be out there hitchhiking, because that's who I was in college. And this idea that I've taken a somewhat normal track. And there was a moment where I was going out to like Colorado to do help kids in like this halfway house from like I was going to volunteer, and my dad was like, well, then you could defer your loans from college, so go ahead. And I go out there on a bus. This is right after I hitchhiked for 3 months, and I go out there on a bus, and I'm in this halfway house and I'm being interviewed basically by one of the kids who like came out of juvie, and he's like just throwing stuff at me, and we were just chatting. It was cool. We hit it off. But then the guy who's interviewing me is like, all right, so you're going to have to help this kid that you just met, like, get a job and go back to school and go to college and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't even get a job myself. Like, I don't know. I have no desire to get a job, but like, I know it's important for him to get a job. Like, I should probably think about getting a job. And it was just kind of this realization, like, I don't know if I could help these guys get jobs and start their lives because I don't know how to start my life. And I think that I'm just going to, like, I don't know, fall off a cliff one day and I go out in glory. You know, like, I was doing what I loved. But the reality is I didn't take that job because it was this little conviction, this whisper that said, no, go live life, you know? And my father, I remember I came home from that trip. He's like, here's your bills. You thought about teaching like 3 years ago. Why don't you do that? And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Pop, you know? And I thought about teaching because of, you know, art and the joy of collaboration. And I said, that's a kind of what I want to do. And so I went back and got my teaching degree, all that stuff. But in the end, all like, not being afraid of starting life. And, you know, where my life went, I bought the minivan I thought I would never buy because it was impossible to drive that many kids around without one. You know, it's like, you know, it's like, and therefore success being, I chose things, yeah, there's a point in your life where you get to choose your own stress on some level. Yeah. For sure that sometimes goes away because of like health or like, you know, people in your life are like, oh my goodness, they're stressing me out. But the reality is you get to choose things. And so I've chosen this route that, you know, has given me a sense of success that goes way outside of art making, way outside of, you know, podcasting. Yeah. And for sure though, that desire to create doesn't go away. And the desire to kind of leave something behind because who knows when we go, you know, that is posterity, legacy, you know, something I made, even for my kids to know me as dad and as the guy who's, you know, whatever, a teacher, but also as the guy who creates, you know, was something I desired. So but it all kind of got canned in, okay, I have this foundation of success, which is even just meeting my wife, you know, like that's a wonderful person.
That's what I was going. I mean, I have to in everything that I do and every day, and I don't want to get emotional about it, but my wife saved my life.
Yeah.
I mean, she literally saved my life. I was going down a really bad hole in my life. Yeah. I had lost my sister. I was drinking a lot. I didn't give a shit. A lot of my friends are like, dude, I love you, man. Like, you just don't give a shit about anything. And thinking back to that point, I was like, yeah, fuck it. Like, whatever, man. Tomorrow's going to come and it's going to be fine. And then, you know, didn't come for someone so near and dear to me. And I just didn't know how to deal with that.
Sure.
And I mean, I was going and meeting my wife and her just loving me.
Yeah.
It was the first time. We've all had relationships, right? We've all had relationships in our life, and we all think that at some point we were in love somewhere.
Yeah.
But we may have been in love. The other person may not have.
Sure.
Meeting my wife and feeling what love is really for the first time was life changing.
Absolutely.
I mean, as you mentioned before, where I thought I'd be today is 6 feet underground.
Sure.
I really did. Just because I lived life fast, I really didn't have any cares.
Yeah.
I had none. I didn't care. It was like, I'm just going to do what I'm going to do and I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
I still do that, but I do it in a safer, better way. Well, and it's because of her love that I get to, one of my favorite things is get to say I love you before I go to sleep. Whether it's when I'm traveling for work on the phone or whether it's laying right next to me. And to me, that is the biggest success of my life.
Well, that's it. And that's this, I think this American problem of like believing the American dream is success. Like, I made it as an entrepreneur. I made a better life for my kids. You know, so many, I work in a place where it's a lot of working class people who made it. And I love the working class people who made it, who teach their kids to be working class individuals who work to make it. Mm-hmm. The ones that just give their kids everything because they didn't have it as a kid. Sometimes I worry for those kids because they seem disillusioned. They seem like out of sorts. They don't have a purpose. They don't have a drive. But this American dream idea that we can make it, like in some arbitrary, like mysterious, like definition of success, like how bogus is that? Yeah. If we just understood that it was to be loved and to love might be the best definition of what the meaning of life is. You know, I think of that in terms of it's the old saying, to know God's love and to offer it to others, like all those things as something that's valid. And I think the word dignity of people is like something that keeps coming to my mind. Like, she dignified you and saw your worth. Like, and then you can reciprocate with like, okay, I just needed to have that foundation so I could actually see your worth, because I didn't even know until you gave me that. It's like that realization. And I think we get a lot hung up on kind of arbitrary, fake versions of like what the meaning of life is. And, we get it from television shows, we get it from whatever, but even school itself, like school's all about college is all about success, blah, 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 all that nonsense. Like, I'm at a point where I'm like, all those promises are not so much real promises, especially as economies crash, and especially as college is kind of like high school graduation now, and it costs you $100,000 to go, whatever, a year. It's like insane. So all those promises, it's almost like we were lied to. And what nobody just kept reminding you is like, find things you are in love with and love things, and it's like that, and for sure, your soulmate, your wife, and for me, my high school goals, get a soulmate, find my soulmate, get a dog, and figure out a way to paint my feelings for money. Like make paintings that people will buy, and like outfit my, give me some sort of career. And my wife, phenomenally, like, is my reminder of how to be my best self. Mm-hmm. It's almost like if we just understood that, or even the idea of like quitting, like you quit your passions, you quit your creative life. Even like, I think that the reality of the divorce rate is so high because people just quit. Yeah. It's like, don't quit. No. Just don't quit.
Don't.
It sucks right now, but do not quit.
Unless it's the biggest thing that could ever happen in your lifetime, which you don't really know what it is at the time. If you work at it, things will work out. Yeah. You that work. My father and I have gotten into an argument a couple times because he has this saying. He says, you can't teach work ethic. Yeah. And I always combat him. And I always say, you're wrong. You're wrong. You can teach work ethic. I said, because you taught it to me without knowing. And he goes, I don't understand that. I said, Dad, you were left for work every day at 4 a.m.
Sure.
You went through 18 years of night school to get your engineering degree while having a family at home. Yeah. I go, so you went to work, pick and shovel and construction, went to school at night. I never saw you except for Sunday when you would be home and you would be building something for the house because you're working on the house. Yeah. I said, so do you think I just work really hard at everything I do because I want to?
Sure.
No, you instilled that, so it can be taught, but it has to be taught at an early age. I didn't know you were teaching me it until later on in life. Mm-hmm. I go the same thing. I go, you learn things as you grow. I go, I used to think my mother loved sauerkraut. And I've told this story to friends before. I used to think she loved sauerkraut because we would sit down dinner on Sunday night because the whole family was together, my brother, sister, mother, father, and I. And she would eat sauerkraut while we would all be eating hot dogs. I was like, oh, my mom loves sauerkraut. That's really weird. She didn't like sauerkraut. We didn't have money for anything else. We all ate the hot dogs, and there wasn't hot dogs left for her, but there was sauerkraut. And I didn't realize that till later on in life. Yeah. But regardless, we were successful because we were a family.
Sure.
And realizing that later on in life, it makes me sad, but it also gives me a new appreciation for everything that I get in life, or it's not even accumulate, but things that I do that I know I can go out and buy a cheeseburger today when my family couldn't do that.
Yeah, it's crazy,
that's a big, a huge thing, and I learned so much, and it sucks that I learn it as I feel later on in life. Because how much longer do I have to have this when I wish I knew it when I was 12 years old? Yeah, but it's probably a good thing I didn't.
Sure, and you mentioned earlier too that you live life fast, and you live life passionate, and but it was destructive, right? Yeah. So there's a version of that where you can live your life by your passions, but make sure it's not a pause on your life or a destruction backwards in your life. And I think that's a good way to think about a lot of what we do. I was going to bring this up. There's this idea from St. Ignatius the idea of a consolation and a desolation. And the consolations are like your convictions from God, from life, whatever. Like, I feel like I should do this thing. And I'm surely some theologian out there will be like, you didn't get it right. But the idea that you are convicted to do something, convicted to like hang out with that person. They become your best friend. To date that woman that becomes your wife, to pursue this job, which, I don't know about this job, but I feel like I'm supposed to do it, even though that was like teaching for me. I was like foot out the door before I even started, but I'm like, even coaching, whatever. Like, I feel like I should do this. And then it's like you have this success, and it's like you get this fruit, and the consolation produces this fruit. And you're like, wow, this is great. Okay, the fruit is good. It's actually doing good things for other people. Like, it's actually a service. Even this, like, I think the podcast, like, it's like a thing that people are appreciating. Oh, I want to come on. I want to do this. You're getting people, your favorite bands are contacting you, which is awesome, to come on. And you're like, wait, this is my Desert Island album guy, and he's coming on. But it's the blessing of a consolation, if you follow through, is that it produces good fruit. Yeah. And that's not a pause. That's not destructive. It's positive. And then a consolation can, they say that, like, the initial conviction is like, go and do it, and you commit to it. And they say often the very first thing that happens, and this is like Ignatian spirituality to a T, the first thing that happens is you have doubt. It could be the day after you commit to it. I doubt. Why would I be who am I to do this thing? Why would I do that? Why would I go become a teacher? I hated school, whatever it is. And the rule is, the Ignatian rule is, don't stop. Stick to your commitment. Keep going. Don't quit. Because the reality is the fruit will come. It might be hard, and there might be a hard road, but it's going to come. And then there's a thing called a desolation, which is something that's negative, something that will undermine the thing that you want to pursue, the thing that you're passionate about. And that's often, it could be in the form of a person, a hater, a troll, whatever it is. Ignore. And the reality is, anything, though, as we know, like, things you're passionate about could very easily, just by obsessing over them, could be problematic. And I know, as a podcaster, this is a reality, like checking your downloads, like you're like checking to see who's, all right, should I put like 95 hours into promoting this episode because that's going to be the best, it's going to make it, And I know you talked about the Hall of Fame episode, no advertising, and it still gets a ton of hits, It's just like you have to, on some level, like, trust the thing you're doing and get it out there. And I know I have some missing links. Like, I need to, like, literally put a link in my promo sometimes. But the idea that you can trust the thing and just go and not worry about it. And when you obsess over it, it actually can become a negative thing. Like, for example, you read a book which has got, like, the best advice on life, and you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then, like, you're just beating yourself up because you don't do it. Yeah. And that becomes, like, the negativity of a passion. Or you convinced of this piece of advice you got from somebody, and you give it to everybody, and nobody's listening to it, and you start judging the world around you, like, oh my goodness, why is everybody such an idiot? And it's like, when you get bitter, okay, don't make your consolation a desolation. Don't take the good thing that was a gift from God, as whatever your language is, the universe, however people play, like, whatever that conviction is, that passion of your heart, true to yourself, authentic living, whatever it is, like, to not obsess over it, because that's where it can go wrong. It's almost like like, if the only person you hang out with is the person you're dating, and then you forgot all your friends. Yeah. It's like that idea. Don't take a good thing and ruin it. No, she should be hanging out with you and your friends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and I've done this, certain things in my life, and people come across, and they come and they go, and that's just the nature of the business. But that's certain people that I kind of realized after a while that anytime they started dating someone, they would go away. Yeah. And then when they weren't dating someone anymore, they'd come back in your life. And it took me a long time to just be like, well, you know what? That's who they are. Sure. I still need to love them and appreciate them. Yeah. And it took me a while, but I'm there now with certain people that have come and gone in my life. And I try to make it a point for my wife and say, no, go do that. Go out. I don't want to see you right now. And it's not a bad thing. It's because we all need a little bit of that separation too, because that's at times when you find a new passion find something that you're gonna love. Is even though when you're with the person that you love constantly, you find things you love together, but you also need to love things separately.
Yeah. I think that, and that reality bringing something back to your relationship too. The bringing something back to your relationship, like this idea that you give her, I remember you described it. This wall is yours, hon, to put your paintings up, to put your creations up. That encouraging and helping someone become their best self, especially as your spouse, like encouraging them to go. And for sure, it can't be all the time because you need your time together.
Yeah.
You can't have two totally separate lives. But the cool thing is when you go out into the world and then come back, you have stories to share with each other.
Exactly.
And you have, hey, can you give me advice on what just happened? Like, this was crazy. Can you what do you think I should do? My brother-in-law described a moment where this is Corey Harden, another artist, as his wife, another artist, Melissa Harden. She said, it's just perspective. You just gotta, she's like, I know you're stressed out about this thing at work right now, but it's just perspective. If you just saw it as like an adventure, like, oh, a good challenge, then you'll see it as that rather than like, oh my goodness, I got to deal with this. And it's that idea of like, you're going out and then you come back and you're seeking advice or you're sharing. And as long as it's kind of all those pieces together, and it's great. It's like you really do, have the support to pursue your passions, each other, go in little different directions, but you're always coming back together, and that's the key. And that's the not quitting again. And even as you described friends, like we used to say, like, see you when you get back. It was like a thing because you knew that breakups happen too quick. But that idea of like, there's all these themes, like bitterness is the opposite of forgiveness. Like forgiveness is a good moving forward theme. Quitting versus following your passion, like these are like there's like always an opposite, like it's hope or hopelessness. Like hope is always the better decision, even if you don't know what the heck you're grasping onto. It's just a better word. Hopelessness is too long. Well, hope is quick and easy. I get it. I have peace when I think about that.
That's exactly right. I mean, you brought it up before where you said we were lied to. I mean, and that literally sitting here talking, like that's sticking in my head. We were lied to when we were growing up, and how you can see people that didn't have things want to give everything that they didn't have to, and it's destructive. And work, we keep coming back to work. I like to look at. I had brought this up before. Somebody had mentioned the glass half full. And I said, I don't look at it half full or half empty. I look at it as I have a glass of water, but mine has a crack in it. And my only job is to stop that crack from getting larger. I think we're all born into a fractured life.
Sure.
And how fractured can we get? Will it become the Grand Canyon? Or will it become an anthill? And, I look at my life every day that I take a step outside of my world. There's a door. Door's either open or it's locked. It doesn't matter because I can always get through it because I can either kick it down or I can take a long time to find the key in a haystack full of keys, a big pile of keys, but I'm going to get through that door. And it took me a long time to get there because I do feel we were lied to with having to do great in school and having to go to college and having to do this to succeed in life, going back to success. And I didn't finish college. I don't have an engineering degree. And guess what? What I do for a living is complicated engineering. And it's just because that's what I wanted to do. There was a door in front of me. And I didn't kick that door down. I searched for that key. And when I finally found that key and opened that door, my life was in front of me. But it wasn't because I went to school to learn about it. It was because what we've been talking about. I was passionate about it. I saw something that was interesting and fun. And I was like, wow, I love how complicated this is. But when it's so complicated, I can make it this easy. And the best thing that ever happened to me was I was giving an engineering seminar to a bunch of civil engineers who have all their degrees and their PE stamps. And when I was done, a guy came up to me in the class and goes, got to tell you, that was best seminar I've ever been to because you made it so easy and you took complicated theory and made it so easy for us, like you were teaching to the dumbest person in the room. And all I said to him, I go, that's because I am the dumbest person in the room. And just like that, he laughed and I go, no, I'm serious. And that's how I feel, sometimes about myself. But if I can understand it and I'm the dumbest person in the room, imagine all these smart people that I'm teaching to my level. That's that finding that door, and a lot of people find that locked door and they turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people give up.
Yeah.
And if there's a locked door in front of you, like I just said, there's 3 things that you can do with it. You can either kick it down, you can wade through that big pile of keys and take a little bit of time to find the one key that turns that door open, or you can turn around and walk away. And I think if you turn around and walk away, you don't know what's on that other side of the door.
Yeah.
Like, let's make a deal.
Sure,
you want door number 1, 2, or 3? You don't know.
Yeah.
But find out first before you walk away. Let that door open and find out whether it's something you're going to want. And that's a big thing. And listen, it's not easy.
I love that.
It's not easy. It really isn't. And that's my glass half full. I've been through tons of shit in my life, just like everybody else. And we all think all our problems are worse than what anybody else has ever gone
it's
through.
All real. Everybody's broken.
Yeah. And that's it. We're all born into a fractured life. But it's how that fractured life, how can we bring that crack as close back together to let the water seep out over 100 years, or let it come out in 1 minute? How do we do it?
Yeah, well, I'm thinking of I think it's episode 5. Mona Patel. She says, "By the wounds," she's quoting scripture. It's like, "By the wounds that we have healed, we will help heal others." This idea, like even the hope to actually heal the fracture, somehow. And I think it's a good point. Like as you described earlier, like if you ignore the fracture, the broken glass, all the water is just going to go out. And that's sadly what happens. That's where we like give up. I don't even care anymore. I love as you describe your job and and education. I think it's a lot of the themes that I hit in the podcast. And part of why I wanted to interview you is like your creativity has led you basically to forge a career in engineering that you have no degree in. And I think that's the awesomeness of so many creative people across time. Like these the rejected one, or the one who didn't do it like through the proper means, ends up being the one who's like, making sense of something that's complicated to a bunch of people who have the education. I love that. And I think that's the problem of education too. I think for my students who aren't doing well or like just hate school, I say to them like, well, what are you into? What is it that you're into? And I remember one student came back to me, he's like, Mr. D, I figured out how to learn. He's like, I've been ignoring you with like listening to you about that I'm good at photography. He's like, but I just started looking up stuff, and I started finding stuff that I enjoyed about photography, not stuff you're teaching, but stuff I found on my own. He's like, and I realized like the key to learning is like, one, being interested on your own, independently of a teacher, independently of your parents, independent, like all those, the idea that you get to make decisions in life. And he's like, I chose to do the research, and I found something I really loved. He's like, I think I've learned something for the first time in years since I learned how to read, in first grade. He's like, I figured out how to learn. And I was like, awesome. I don't know if he did really well in my class in the end all, but it was this great moment where I realized like me saying to him, just be open to like things you're good at, because that's something that you should pursue, but even like pursue it on your own, because I can't force it on you. It's like nothing in me can force on you. And that's the reality of all this.
When you're
stuff.
Sitting in a classroom, nobody wants to be there.
Yeah.
You have to understand.
There's a couple of kids.
There's one or two.
I call it the rule of thirds. There's a third of the class that at least looks like they want to be there, a third that are like, let me just get through this, and a third who do not care. Yeah. And it's a photo term, so it makes sense.
It's hard to want to do things that you're told to do. Yeah. Just like anything else. Mom says, don't go do that. What's the first thing? You go and do it right away.
Sure.
I mean, it's just the nature of who we are as human beings.
Yeah.
Usually when you're told you can't have something, all you're going to try to do is go get that thing. And I wish and I hope, and seeing the world at times come together through certain things is I wish it was easier for us all. I really do. I wish it was easier for people to learn. I wish it was easier for people to find their passion. And it's not there for some. And if I started my show with the hopes of reaching one person. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. And that's when you start something, and especially in what we're doing now, if you start it because you want to just conquer the world and you want to be the next Joe Rogan, I'm not fucking Joe Rogan.
No.
I wasn't on a TV show. I wasn't a commentator. I didn't already have this following.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, go to do things because they think they're going to have that ultimate success where it's the millions of dollars and all this notoriety where it's all you got to do is touch one person.
Yeah, that's the key. Yeah, and I was going to ask you that question, so it's nice that you answered it already. Yeah. Is like, what motivated you to do this?
Yeah, my motivation was literally, honestly, the motivation behind it. Motivation comes in a lot of different ways. The motivation was truly for me is I went to a lot of concerts, and I went to a lot by myself because I'm one of those people that I'm going to enjoy something. It's my passion. I don't always have to, I always don't have to experience it with someone.
Sure.
But I'd always meet someone. I was very, I do have social anxiety, which is weird when, you see me in certain settings, but, I do have social anxiety, comes from PTSD, but I enjoyed that common bond with actually meeting someone at a show and talking music. And I was like, wow. Yeah. I'm like, I almost was getting more enjoyment of discussing music with someone at a show than I was enjoying the music at the show.
That's awesome.
And I just, for a long time, I had been doing, thinking, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Sure.
2.5 years, man.
Yeah.
2.5 years to get it to fruition and put out my first episode. And I have to give a lot of credit to my friends. I have a great support staff. I really do. My friends, they're great people. We've been with each other, more than half our life. When you look back and think about it, all my true good friends that I still hang out with to this day, we were 13 years old when we met. We're 44, 43. To think about that and still be together and still support each other is I wish everyone had that. I truly do, because it was a lot of, my wife pushing me to do it, but a lot of, my friends and one friend in particular who I know you've spoken with and who was my first guest just said, you're doing it.
Dylan.
And Dylan Clark, you're doing it and you're starting it now and you're doing it.
Yeah, that's great.
And I owe him to the fact that coming up soon, I am interviewing someone who created a Desert Island album for me. Is to think how far in a short period of time, but I was scared.
Sure.
Just like anything else, I was scared.
Yeah.
I was always motivated to do it, but I wasn't motivated to follow through with it.
Sure.
And always being scared. You and I talked when I was, you were asking me questions about how to start it, and the biggest thing was always worried about who my next guest was going to be. And who's my next guest? I got to do this. I got to do this. And then it just got to the point where I don't worry anymore. Because that was a little destructive too. I was being like, oh my God, who's coming next week? Who am I going to have? Well, in 5 weeks from now, who am I going to be interviewing? I don't know. Like, how am I going to get this done?
One day at a time, my friend.
I had a friend say that, to me, being like, man, when you started it, I was worried, how you were going to get people. And he's like, dude, the fact that you just, it's amazing.
The commitment just leads to one door opening, next door opening.
Exactly. And that is going through the key and meeting people and just talking and being
yourself,
and being nice. And, it's easier to be nice than it is mean. It really is. And just being nice to people, because I truly do care, and I appreciate the artistry of what people do.
Yeah, well, that's it.
That's all it really is I do truly appreciate it. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be talking about it. I wouldn't be talking about music.
Well, I think that's what comes across, what makes people feel comfortable, why people say you're the best interviewer they've ever had. It's this real appreciation for what they're doing, and you know it well enough. Even if it's a band you don't know, you'd research it well enough to realize, like, I want to actually talk to you about this. How did you come up with this, or where did this come from? And that's an awesome thing. And so it's this, again, genuine. Your passion, you committed to it, and then just pieces fall in place, which is great. And I think on some level, I started my podcast just for the person I'm interviewing, to encourage them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're worth interviewing. You know, it's like, and some of these people, my brother being the first episode, phenomenal writer. He's been a writer his whole life, dedicates his life to being, a father and a postman as his career. And he's had seasons of writing a lot and seasons of making music and seasons of this and that. But when we talk, he's a creative man who's got a brilliant brain. We hit it off because we're brothers and friends. But I said, I want to record what you say because it's interesting. And I also want to publish your stinking, poems because they're so wonderful and they're inspiring to me. And to encourage that person I'm interviewing, known or unknown, you know, and to for sure, validate what they've always done. The amount of things that are hidden in a journal somewhere that are valid because they're authentic and interesting. And I just hope that me encouraging them gets it out the door a little bit, which it does just by the nature of putting it into a recording, even if they don't, have a following place, but it's
you don't need a following.
Yeah,
you don't need a following. And that's what I, stated earlier. It's only one person. And that's exactly. And that's what's important about it is that one person. And that's what I truly am only trying to reach is that one person that may need something. I don't need to reach the 100 or the 1,000 or the 100,000. Just that one person. And that's what I encourage artists to do as well. Yeah. It's that one song. Yeah. The person that you didn't know needed it the most at that time is you'll never know because you may never meet them and they may never tell you. But it's so important that you keep creating because it could be that one song that saved one person's life. And that's what's genuine.
Absolutely. For Music Love, I have to mention Pedro the Lion, which is a band that I'd listened to. It's hard to find a friend over and over and over again while I was painting a house at my old job, and my now wife would be walking by on the street a lot, and I was trying to avoid her and stop thinking about her because it was not time, She was younger than me, so I'm not thinking about you until it's time. But that album saved my life. Oh my goodness. And so thank you, David Bazan and Pedro the Lion. Yeah, just those gifts of what people make. They don't know what it is to this guy who listens on repeat to a tape version of that album. It was
that's why I say we take ownership. As a fan, you take ownership. It's no longer the artist. Yeah. When you create something and you put it out for someone else takes ownership of it. And you have to be okay with that. Yeah. And you have to create, and I think you almost have to, when you're creating, kind of think that way too, is that it's not mine anymore. Yeah. Yeah. I created it. When I created it, it was for me, but it's no longer mine. Yeah. The minute someone else but you sees it or hears it, it's no longer yours.
Sure, and it's that idea that the greatest things in the world, New York City, you walk through it, it's like someone had to come up with this. I mean, I love creation, nature. I'm walking through. This is phenomenal. This morning I see the sunrise and I said to my son, "Look at the clouds. Look how awesome. This is phenomenal." But even New York City, which is fully human made. What a phenomenal creation. This is the power of humanity. I always say we're created to create. This is who we are. And if we're just being entertained to death, wait, we actually got to put something out because that's what you're supposed to do. You are someone, everyone is someone who has something to offer. And that fear you talked about earlier, there's two types of fear. One that's going to save your life, which is a good fear. The other kind, which is just I'm afraid I'm not good enough. I'm afraid I'm not going to pull this off. All that fear is to be ignored because you're interested in doing something. It's I just got to go do it. That fear is, that was in front of every good thing I've done in my life. Paintings I've made, teaching, marriage. I knew this was my soulmate. The amount of times that woman showed up in my life, and not because she was talking to me. Stalking me was if she shows up, I know she's the woman I'm going to marry. And she would always show up. And she'd show up as I'm listening to Pedro the Lion, there she is again. Okay. And she would come and hang out with me. And we had a great life of friendship before we ever were together. But all those, those little things, in the end all, it's, just about being open and not letting the fear that's going to block something that will give you a good thing. Yeah. Just needs to be ignored. That's another lie. Yeah. I don't know exactly where that one. And even the lie that we mentioned earlier, where does it come from? a lot of it comes from our perception, our lack of knowledge. As you say, I wish I knew what I knew now. Yeah. I know now. It's G-Ball's old ringtone.
Yeah.
Wish that I knew what I know now.
But and that's why I said it before. I guess I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I would have known everything I didn't have.
Sure.
And I think that's the difference now. I think that's a huge difference in life now, where you see what other people have and you know what you don't have. And I think kids are seeing it a lot sooner and recognizing it a lot sooner. And, listen, we can sit here and wax poetically about being old fogies. And, I think we grew up I think we grew up in the greatest time to see from what we didn't have to where it's come now, to think about in that short period of time. That's why it's, thinking my parents and how I have to answer the phone and tell my dad how to do this on his TV and help, because we grew up with 7 channels to now, I mean, countless channels and apps for watching stuff, but we grew up and we were able to progress with it, which I think is really cool, where, some people were either nowadays, they're born into it, or they were born way before it, like our parents. And it's just being able to see things differently. I think it's awesome. But I also, for some reason, I don't know how our generation has created a generation that feels that they deserve things by not working for it too, where I'm like, it's weird. I'm like, at the same time, like, I thought we grew up the greatest because we saw how much an effort went into creating new things.
Sure.
But at the same time,
it's a crazy time. I say it to my children. I say, you guys will never stop being entertained. This is the reality of now. You can go to listen to music. You can get a little bored with that. Go play video games. Get bored with that. New video game. Okay, bored with that. Watch YouTube. Unlimited. Yeah. Netflix, almost unlimited. Yeah. You're like, you can spend all waking hours being entertained. And I just say, it's good. It's something great. Like, what access? Phenomenal. And almost, universal access, especially in, pandemic life, even kids who didn't have Wi-Fi or a computer now had one because they needed it for school, like access to all those things. I said, the problem is when you stop going outside. The problem is when you stop creating. The problem is when you stop interacting with the people who are here and now. The problem is, a young person being at their, their grandfather's, birthday party and writing to their friend that they're bored. Yeah. Like, you're not hearing grandpa's stories right now. Like, what helped me grow up was, so it's like what we will make sure, and this is the awesomeness of bridging the generation. We know what was good in the old. Mm-hmm. We will not throw out the baby with the bathwater. No, we will not. And our young generation teaching kids, like, they have this appreciation of nostalgia. That's why a show like Stranger Things will do so well. Yeah. There's like this appreciation for nostalgia, and they almost want it, but they will supplement with just entertainment rather than going and living it. But for sure, humanity will survive. I said to my students the other day, make sure you guys at least look up when the person you're going to marry someday is across the room, because you want to catch eyes. Mm-hmm. Like, don't miss that moment when you catch eyes with a person because you were looking down at your phone. Like, please, because they're so there now. And I say, I think humanity will survive. And the reality is, just like when I was in college, I was a TV kid. I was a TV. Mm-hmm. We had McDonald's every Friday night. Like, whatever, all those things those are spoils of my life. I go to college and I stopped drinking soda because I realized, like, I'm going to get cavities in all my teeth. Like, we know that there's consequences to living certain ways. And I stopped watching television. I was like, I'm just going to stop. If there's a show on, I might watch it. If my friends put it on, but I'm not going to turn it on. Yeah. Because I need to live and create. And there was fully those moments where maybe even there, like one of our house parties, I would just close the door and paint because the house party's going on, but I'm going to make stuff because that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do. And so I think, humanity will survive. We know this.
Well, yeah, it'll always carry on.
And we will always fall back to a desire, at least, for those things that are gone. And we will remind, no, like, come on the hike with me. Come, like, I want you to come and meet, go to my cousin's, they're having their baby's first birthday. So you know what it is to have a child and how beautiful that is. Like, whatever it is, like, to try to show and teach in that way.
I had a moment the other day, my phone rings and it's my friend. And the first thing he says is, "I'm sorry I called, but I had 2 questions that a text wouldn't have really sufficed." And my first words out of my mouth were, "Thank you. Thank you for calling, because we need human interaction, and I don't need to text back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
I'll appreciate this 4-minute phone call more so than I would that text."
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's little things like that.
That's the humanness.
But it's also really good that we can text really, easily. I mean, there's so much good and so much bad to come from everything. Yeah. You just have to find that perfect middle ground, which you're always going to stray to one side or the other at some point. But it's that balancing game.
Yeah, it's that all things in moderation life, it goes on almost every topic, and it fits into that consolation idea. Like, if you obsess over something, it'll be bad for you.
Yeah.
And reality, even the good things of your life, I have to leave my studio to make sure my daughter, has food, whatever it is, or to make sure my wife feels love still, like whatever it is, or, I need to still, stop even my very involved life to call my parents and see how they're doing. Like, whatever it is, like to those, you can't obsess, and you can't go overboard, because you lose it.
Yeah, it's important. So you brought up Pedro the Lion before, and talking about music, since we're going all over the place, which is fucking awesome. But I do have to ask a couple standard questions here.
Yeah, I'll take them.
So, Pedro the Lion played a huge part in your life, which is just awesome. Did you see his documentary?
No, I've avoided watching it until I am not too tired. I need to watch it.
Okay,
for sure.
Yeah, really good.
I heard it definitely was very good. I know his whole
story is
his story, which I think is a very interesting, powerful story. And I totally want to just talk to him, because I come from some of the same world, and I've left the same world, and it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. And my faith is something that fully is what connected me to him. And often my music tastes like, it's our band could be your life. That's always how I listen to music. Like, the music that has the lyrics and the sounds and the aesthetics of my life is what I'm listening to. It's like a self-portrait, which is the awesomest thing about music.
Yeah. You can find it.
Yeah,
you can find it.
You can find it.
You can find it. You can find your own. What you may have thought was your self-portrait isn't until you truly find that what it could be.
Yeah, and you can find it on this thinking album cover.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, this band's gonna be good. I could tell. Yeah. We've mentioned that. Yeah, you've mentioned that in your podcast.
Do you remember when music actually became a part of your life? Was it through worship, or do you remember like a specific moment?
My mom was such a music lover. Just always listening to music growing up, whether it was Sade or, Fleetwood Mac or, things that annoy me now that I don't want to talk about, but such, and really always buying music and on top of it, like really interested. My dad, he had certain rules about music. He didn't love repetition. He didn't love this and that. So there's certain songs that he would gel with. My mom was fully the music lover. I still have some of her old albums, and whether it's the Beatles or anything from her youth, it was just, I always think, my brother and I mentioned Sade. It's like our memory. Sweetest taboo, like whatever. So her love, and so that was always something that was in the air growing up, which is pretty awesome. And then for me, I think my first love of music hit probably, I always I was listening to like Bon Jovi when it was popular, blah, 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 and I bought the album at some point, but there was definitely a moment where I remember just hearing Guns N' Roses' Sweet Child of Mine on the radio, and we were up in, I remember where I was. It's so cool. Yeah. I remember I was in...
it's our time machine.
Hemlock Farms, the old boombox, set up, and being like, what is this? And this
just
is so
guitar
different. So different. It's so different. I don't really like it, but I do. And same thing happened, I remember when, I'm a Loser Baby was on the radio. Like, I thought it was a commercial.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like so different than the rest of the radio. And I'm like, oh no, this is really good. But there was that moment. And I think, the moment of, just hearing music that I was attracted to first, even started with Dylan. Like Dylan, as you say, like encourager, like giving me Hold Your Fire on cassette, like Rush tape.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is really good. And then Jay Agnish, who's a wonderful musician and, guest on soon to be guest. He was already recorded eventually released podcast.
Spoiler.
Jay just wrote a really beautiful thank you to all of his fans, like, and that reaching one, just whoever's ever listened, who's ever, it's kind of nice because he stopped doing music for a while. But Jay and I were making music together at a really young age. We were doing the pink tape radio where we'd record on a cassette and press play and then record a second track on another cassette. And that was our early 4-track. And so I think making and creating music too, I was the singer and I could write lyrics, and even with Dylan did that eventually in high school, and the Love Pond days.
The Love Pond.
Yeah, which is, but just the making of music too was, I think eventually what really made me appreciate listening and realizing that what I was listening to was something I could do as well, even if it was just fumbling on a guitar and just making whatever I could make,
Yeah, I think so the other day, couple days ago, we posted about the album's turning 30 this year.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And it's funny that because you've brought up a couple bands, and to think that the overlap of the year 1991, now that we're in 2021, the overlap, you brought up Sebadoh earlier.
Yeah.
Which, so in that year, you had Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusions 1 and 2, Sebadoh 3, and Dinosaur Jr.'s Green Mind all came out that same year.
Yeah.
So to think of that overlap and how different it was, man, how different the sounds were. But again, for me, Dinosaur Jr. is a hugely successful band.
Absolutely.
Huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the level of Guns N' Roses in my head, but to other people,
people don't know.
No, people have no idea who it is.
They might know I Feel the Pain of Everyone.
Yeah. Because it was on 120 minutes. Yeah.
But even that's still a stretch. Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is there was a time where I wouldn't admit that I was listening to Guns N' Roses still, but I still was, because we moved on, into, alternative music, whatever, grunge, lo-fi, whatever indie music you're listening to, and Guns N' Roses was too pop, it was like, even though it wasn't at all ever really pop, but it was.
No,
it was for a time,
because it was considered
crazy.
Top 40.
And
Top 40 was pop.
Well, I love the idea that the underground becomes the above ground eventually, and I think that's great. And for some, it sabotages. I think I always think of Kurt Cobain. I just wish he was a no name still, so he was still out here making music.
Listen, I mean, all of those guys. I mean, I've said it to my friends. I don't know if I've ever said it here. Somebody go take Eddie Vedder and put him in a fucking plastic bubble to let nothing happen to him, because that underground scene, we lost.
Oh, too many.
Chris Cornell, Scott Weiland, Lane Staley, Kurt Cobain. Andrew Wood. I mean, all these guys in that underground scene they're not here anymore.
Yeah,
and is it because that underground became above ground?
I was just thinking. I want to take that back on some level. I think it's
you're not allowed to take it back. It's on here.
It's okay.
It's recorded.
I will own it and own it. But I do think, on some level, Kurt Cobain was self-medicating his whole life. I just wish there was maybe now, like, we're, mental health is not so taboo. Like, it's more of an open, conversation. Maybe, who knows what it would be, like something that could help. I mean, in the end all, on some level, the lie we mentioned earlier is that fame and power and money is what success. Life is all about. Yeah. And that's, and I think they know, and any famous person who is disillusioned, and we know it because they're drug addicts, or we know it because, oh my goodness, what just happened to them? Or even behind the scenes, we find out later, I think of, like, even Robin Williams, like, like what was going on, what was broken, that fractured life. And maybe it was ignored because of the fame and the power and success, and the fracture just became Grand Canyon-like, and there's that, and so that, the need for healing, forgiveness, all those things, and loved to love and be loved. All those, like, foundational things, for sure, adored and worshipped even, but that's troublesome. Yeah, it's funny you gave me the cup of tea with Bad Religion on it. I remember being at a Bad Religion concert and seeing how worshipped that band was, but being someone who had faith And I love Bad Religion. I still appreciate Bad Religion. I even appreciate their critique of Christianity because it needs to be humbled.
Yeah.
But the that seeing everybody with their hands up and praising the band and like, oh my goodness, like we worship these things, and on some level, it's important, this music, but we can't obsess over it. It's like, and I remember that actually maybe not judge people in church who raise their hands to that Bad Religion concert, because I was like, oh, if I'm cool with people praising the Bad Religion, I guess it's cool if they praise God. Cool. But that idea.
But here's what's cool and what I find, for people that critique stuff, like, so you were in church and you were at the Bad Religion concert, so you got to see both sides, and that's a huge thing. Like,
and I appreciate both sides still.
Exactly. So you can critique and you can do things. And my thing is, when people critique or say something bad about something that haven't fully, there's always, someone always says there's two sides to every story and the truth lies in the middle. And that's always, I've found myself, struggling through life, and I think we became friends at Young Life. It was a faith-based group, which incorporated music too all the time.
Music, and it was secular music a lot.
Yeah, but it was something that I needed to try for myself, because throughout my life, I kind of learned that everybody has their own thing, and that's completely fine. But I'm not going to critique something if I haven't done it. And I've been able to have, I was in the military when I was shipped out to Kuwait. They gave you one book. You were only allowed to have one book when you were out in Kuwait, and it was the Bible. They still handed out the Bible in the 90s. That's your book. And I was like, I've already read this. And they're like, well, this is, your book. And I'm like, this is weird that you're handing it out, because it was so diverse. Like, even in the 90s, like, things were being more diverse, but you're handing out, a Bible to people, and it's not.
I didn't know that was real.
Yeah, I still have it. It's camo colored, desert colored camo that they handed out. But at that time, I wanted to decide and say, let me find out what other things about, because I was in a foreign land, and their book was the Quran.
Sure.
I was able to go into Kuwait City and get an English copy of it and read it. So I read that, and then I found The Age of Enlightenment, and I read that, and then I started to find my own self, to where the point in my life is I'm more spiritual. Everybody, it's something to believe in. And if it makes you a better person to believe in that, I said it one time to somebody, I go, listen, you can believe in God, you can believe in Muhammad, you can believe in the Krishna, you can believe in whatever you could believe in the refrigerator, but if that's your thing, that's fine.
As long as you're not hurting people.
Exactly. And that's fine.
And using it to justify evil things.
And not judging people off of what your beliefs are.
Sure.
And you put that in the music, going to a Bad Religion concert and then going to church, and not,
in the Christian world, that was people are very critical of me for that. Even I remember going on retreats and people saying things like, you're gonna have to go home and change all your friends. I'm like, no. Like, why don't they get to hear this great story of, God saving us, forgiveness, whatever? And I don't play that game. I want to be fully in the world and fully open to people, whatever their beliefs are, whatever their faith is, whatever,
Well, isn't it
the lack of faith is,
isn't the big thing accepting?
Yeah, and the idea that you have to separate yourself ignores even like scriptural things like be in the world, surely not of the world, but be in the world. You got to be in the world. And even like St. Francis of Assisi is my hero, because he would dignify people no matter who they were, no matter what their faith was, because he saw them as God's creation and saw them as God doing things with them as legit, and saw them as fully to be respected. And surely he witnessed his faith in Jesus and, even Catholicism. I think he's actually like the one thing that saved the Catholic Church from being a totally corrupt institution from back in the day. And thank God that he still exists now, because maybe that's what's keeping it together, or maybe God's keeping it together and getting out all the junk finally. But whatever, like, there's so much corruption in religion, and when people wear it as their flag bearing, it's a problem, because it justifies all the bad things they do, they think, and that's a problem. And even like going into I mean,
I think that's the world today. I think everybody's
got a flag.
Everybody's got a flag, and everybody has a uniform. It's that tribalism. Everybody's looking for their team.
Yep.
And their team justifies the mean things that they say or the things that they do, and it's not it. Humanity.
And I mean, I even being like doing this podcast, even admitting right now I have faith is offensive maybe to someone, but whatever. This is who I am. I'm authentically going to be myself, and I'm not preaching to you. I'm just sharing my life. You know, and it's this idea of like being authentic and not hiding anything because I'm afraid of being judged, or at the same time not being so obnoxious with this thing that I believe where I'm judging the people around me. Like, that's not our place. Even Jesus in the Bible says that's not your job. Your job is not to say you're going to hell at anyone. Your job is not to judge. That might be his job, but it's not my job. You know, like, but even I came to save. You know, surely there's people will throw scripture all over the place and justify their angle. But the most important angle to me is like encouraging people to be who they are. You know, and that's part of the edge of my podcast, and to validate and dignify whatever your faith, like it's like, let's hear, and it's all got powerful things in it, and for sure, you know, it's something that cannot be touched on some level, and is foundations for everybody's story. Everybody's story goes somewhere, and for sure, you know, faith goes where it goes. People's openness, as long as you don't quit. That's my theory. Even with faith, like as long as you don't quit entirely. Like, doubt is a wonderful question, but when you answer your own doubt, that's a problem. Because why not ask, like, you know, even to say to the God you might not believe in, like, if you exist, please answer my doubt, because it ain't working right here. Like, I'm just answering my own questions, you know, like, so doubt is a question to be answered, is what I always think. But so many people are afraid to ask the stinking questions. And I think it's really important to ask those questions.
Listen, the dumbest question is the one that's not asked, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
My grandfather said one time, I used it in a seminar, and I was like, I'm not going to use that anymore. He goes, there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there is stupid people. and it sticks with me all the time because it's funny, but like when I have a question, if I don't understand something, I'm going to ask that question. I can't be bashful about it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's it. Like, not hiding out. You're like, you got something to say it. It's like, I mean, sometimes you got to be wise. Like, it's not time to say it, or it's. And I've been called out for sure on that one.
Yeah. My wife calls me out.
Yeah, which is good to have people in your life, and never burn your bridges. This is real, and like your friends absolutely are people who will call you out, and that's a good friend, you know. And your wife calling you out, that's a good wife. You know, all those things, and
maybe you shouldn't have said that there, but that's what I was feeling at the time. Yeah. But then I'm like, oh, okay, you're right. You're right. The hardest two words to say in a marriage. You're right.
Yes. Well, let me get one question in that I always ask.
Okay.
You know, so this is truly your stolen hours, the podcast, right? So like doing this in your off time from work, off time from hanging out with your wife. Like, how do you? When do you steal these hours? And like, and you know what? Like, how does this? Benefit your work life, benefit your life with your wife.
I'll be perfectly honest. It's selfish. So it's a selfish thing. I don't think it benefits anything but myself. That's just how I feel, because it is, even though, you know, it sounds terrible for me to say it's selfish, but it's something that when I think something is truly a passion and you do it, I do think it's selfish, but it's selfish in a good way, because it helps me keep going, and it helps me stay motivated, that we talked about a lot. And to find time for it, I just make time. I carve out that time. You know, there's time for work. There's time with your family. And, you know, I again, going back to support staff, I have a good support staff, and my wife is my support staff, and she knows I'm passionate about it, and she gives me that leeway to, hey, listen, I have an interview this day, and that's fine. It is becoming harder now, interviewing people across the world and the time zones. You know, it is becoming a little bit harder in that respect, but I mean, it's just staying motivated to do it. It really is. I mean, you know you're in that position now that you want to keep creating and you want to interview as many people as you can all at once and get it all done. But you're also doing it, I feel, for me sometimes, to do it to get it done.
Sure.
And
you don't want it to become a chore, but sometimes you just got to get done.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't understand how much work we're actually putting into this. Some people think, people just put a microphone in front of them, they hit record, and then they put it out. If you want to do something, I've always said, don't ever do it half-ass. Don't ever do it. Don't ever go in at 90%. Yeah. Because I don't feel that you can be successful that way. You either got to give it everything you got or nothing at all. And I mean, just to start it was a struggle, 2.5 years, and then to keep it going, it's a struggle, but it's a good struggle.
Yeah. I have a hard time admitting that making art and doing things like this are selfish, but you're right, it is. And it's selfish in that it's fully who you are, and it does take you away from other responsibilities, other things you should be doing. I do feel like there is a kind of a perfect balance place where it's like, okay, now I have the time, I should do it. Or I'm awake, I should do it. And sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. and that's when I'm doing something for this. And I know I'm awake because I was thinking about when I went to sleep and I woke up early, but I did go to bed early. So I'm kind of balanced right now. If you just don't get sleep too many nights of the week, that's never good. And actually, I was thinking about that earlier with like listening to an episode. Sometimes I listen, I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to put it out. And then the next day I'm awake and I got enough sleep and I listen to it again. I'm like, oh, that was a good episode. Yeah. But it's like perspective is totally off when you're not rested. But the idea that, and on some level, someone said to me, I think it was my cousin, Mark Agers, great passion, interesting, creative guy. He said, everything you do casually, once you get married, it's not really going to happen, but anything you do passionately is going to stay with you. That's going to be who you are and, and who you're going to be, through your life. He's like, so just make sure you don't lose those things you're really passionate about. He's like, but the casual stuff, if you were a little bit into like, whatever, mountain biking, it's probably going to go away. Or, especially as, family and work life, et cetera, gets complicated, but the idea that, there's things that are who you are. And this, as you say, for 2.5, it didn't go away.
No.
It's like sometimes with the podcast, I'm like, okay, I was thinking about doing something new, like, trying out this or that. And I'll just say, I don't have time for that. And if it goes away, it's fine. Yeah. But if it stays, and tomorrow morning when I have time, I'm like, oh, that I'm going to do that now.
Yeah. And that's, there isn't enough time in the day to live, laugh, love, all those things that you're supposed to do. And, carving out time to do this is, even I always had tried to put that limit on. I wanted to keep it under an hour because you can always find an hour in a day.
Yeah.
And that was just finding that perfect balance of an hour. And when you're interviewing somebody else, though, but now you have to find their perfect hour. Yeah. And that's, it's tough for everybody, but it's been able to make it work. Yeah. And, again, I have a great teammate.
Yeah,
my wife's a great teammate, and she's a big supporter, and it's something she's passionate about too, which is pretty awesome. And that's,
I love that it's a tag team.
Yeah, we are a good team, and that's important to me because it has become her passion a little bit as well. Like I called her the other day. I was out somewhere, and I called her. She goes, "What do you want?" I was like, "Why are you being so mean?" She goes, "I'm listening to the podcast right now." And I'm like, okay.
Don't interrupt me. I'm listening to my husband on the podcast.
She's like, I'm listening to you in another way right now. Is it really important? I'm like, okay, no,
she was into it.
Yeah.
It was a driveway moment. Like she didn't want to leave the car.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, that's, that in and of itself.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
It gives me that drive to do it.
That's the only audience you need.
Yeah. Really.
There's your one.
There's my one, the one that I'm trying to reach.
Well, and I think, you look at fruit, right, of your life. So this selfish act, you're thinking, sometimes questioning it even. Like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But in the end all, the fruit is something to take notice of because people who are encouraged by what you're doing, people contacting you to be interviewed. Hey, I got this. And what we're doing on some level is free advertising for people, so it's a service, and it's a service that's very grassroots and not so self-serving in the end.
See, I don't think I've ever looked at it that way as free advertisement for someone. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to see it that way.
Sure.
Because well,
it's different. It's not advertising in the corrupt sense. It's not media in the corrupt sense, because all those words are crappy now. But it's the idea that it's human. It's what it is. And I heard it best. What's the most popular podcast right now in all of America? Do you know?
It's
I heard it on NPR the other day.
Isn't it something to do with the Bible?
Yeah, right? The Bible in a year.
He's reading the Bible every day.
In a year, Mike Schmitz. But the interview with the Ascension Press, who put it out, thought it was a great response. It wasn't about even a religion. She's like, we as human beings have a desperate desire for our ancient selves, which is so much about telling stories vocally. Yeah. And before the written word, which is most of our existence as humanity, the vocal storytelling, like spoken storytelling, is how history was passed down, as family history was passed down, and that's how we connected as people. It's how kids learned. It's like that storytelling.
Yeah.
And doing it through spoken, word is what takes the corruption out of any free advertising, or takes the corruption out of the word media, because it's about human people telling stories, and it's almost better context than, especially when you're doing an interview with another person, not just one person monologuing. It becomes much more in context to real life, because you have two people going back and forth, and there's the interruptions, you got the dog barking, whatever, just the humanness of it all. And that takes it really, it's what I think of, like Jim Goldberg with his documentary stuff, very potentially going to exploit people was the critique of it. But how he avoided that was by having the people he was photographing speak, write, give input, become part of the project. And on some level, that's what takes away any sort of idea. Like, that's problematic.
I think, my favorite thing is, to watch are documentaries. And I think doing, I've picked a lane is music, because that's what I'm passionate about, and talking with artists and talking with other people about music, and not necessarily an artist, but I've kind of picked that lane. But everyone has a story. And for me, especially with artists, and you're an artist, it's an art form, painting, photography, writing, producing music. It's an art form. And the story behind that art, I think, is what's really important. Yeah. I think it gets missed. I think it gives a newfound appreciation, especially if you're already a fan of a band. Yeah. Per se, you're already a fan of a band, and you've read interviews before, and you've done this. I like where things have kind of gone, and things have gone down different rabbit holes that I didn't think we're going to go down. And I appreciate that, because I'm getting the true worth of what they have to say, and I'm not asking the standard over and over question. And I like when a question comes up in your head when you're talking to someone. Yeah, I have my little book where I have certain things that I want to ask, but I just like learning about someone. It makes me feel more connected. And it does. It gives me a better sense of why they're doing what they're doing, why they're creating something I love so much. Yeah. And it's an amazing, everyone's story is amazing. I truly believe that every single person has an amazing story to tell, and to give them that opportunity is really what I'm passionate about.
That's great. Well, it's interesting. I never thought about this until right now, as you're describing music in relation to documentary. I remember, I know this happened, like with with my mom's love of the Beatles, and how they started doing those secret messages, all that stuff. I know for me, looking at album art, looking at the liner notes, looking at any sort of input that you could find inside that disc jacket, was my introduction to documentary on some level, because I was trying to find facts or backstory to the music I was loving and connecting to. Jay Mascis, I remember we found his on the back of the Homestead Records album. We found his address, and Jay Agnish and I, when he was doing the fanzine, we called. We did we found the address and through 411, like found out the phone number.
Yeah.
And we called. And it was Jay Mascis' mom who answered the phone. And it was like phenomenal. Like, whoa, there's a connection. She's like, oh, he doesn't live here anymore. I'll let him know you called. But he was a big deal, the musician, and we're connecting. And that the desire to connect. I do it with movies I watch, you know, and like, you know, the Harriet Tubman movie, like what a great, great movie. I don't know if that just came out during the pandemic, so it didn't get as much press. But and then I'm like researching her life, like who is this person? I fully do, and this is why we do what we do, is the desire to understand the backstory.
Yeah,
and I love that, and that's I think what led me into photography, documentary photography, going to Mason Grove School of the Arts. Interested in documentary, even though I think I'm going in there to be a painter, but it's that music connection to documentary, which was an introduction to documentary, the backstory that I so loved, the interviews Jay was doing in Fly Girl magazine, the interviews, you know, with Liz Fair at Stink and Maxwell's, and Jay's showing her a picture of like this poorly drawn drawing that I made, and she's like, that looks like bad college art when you're high. And I was a kid in high school, so I was like, at least she thinks I'm in college. But I was like, it is a bad drawing. It was a skull and lots of, you know. Yeah. But it was inspired by, you know, Iron Maiden posters, so I thought maybe there's something to it.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what, and I think that desire to know more, and that's how I am with music. When I hear something that I haven't heard before, my desire immediately goes to, I look for more of that music, who the artist is, what they are about. I try to find every interview they've ever done, and I try to learn more about them because I want to, if it's something that I heard in my ears and it made me perk up, there's got to be something behind it. And that's all I want to do. And that's why I want to talk to people and enjoy what they do and talk to normal people, fans. Like, why do you love music? You know, like why... Like, who's your favorite band if you had to pick?
Here's another here's an Hidden Tracks question.
Hidden Tracks question.
And we've totally killed the hour recording session, I think, but it's okay. Let's keep going. Bonus episode. I mean, my favorite, oh boy, it's hard because there's so many things, you know, that used to be my favorite, current favorite, blah, blah, blah. I would say, you know, Gillian Welch is constantly played in my house because my wife. But Gillian Welch is someone that I just love as a musician because it's so different than the music I always loved. Mm-hmm. I discovered it at a time when it didn't fit my genres at all. I went to a bluegrass festival down in North Carolina, and she was playing, and I'm like, I knew her already. I'm like, wow, this is phenomenal. Just something about the storytelling and the songwriting. Yeah. You know, I think storytelling and songwriting is something I've always been attracted to for the documentary aspect too. Going back to Woody Guthrie, Phil Oakes, you know, et cetera. It's like you can go down those rabbit holes that way too. So there's go-to things that I love. I say, you know, that's I never mind hearing Gillian Welch, and my kids mind, I'm sure. Even our guests mind because it's often the soundtrack of the home. But I'd say I would say in terms of like greatest love of all time. This is hard. I think it's a hard one. I think, you know, U2 is kind of a go-to default. You know, I can listen to that. I do always appreciate Lou Barlow, probably even more than Jay Mascis, although I love both. Sufjan Stevens, who's an old friend who we kind of were there in the beginnings of his solo career. I have no problem pressing play. You know, I appreciate his storytelling. We knew him when he was a writer. We were in this little artist group together. Jay Agnish was part of that. Jay's music's always fun to listen to. His new music's coming out really cool. I get to kind of be behind the scenes of that as he's getting feedback from me, whatever it's worth. But Sufjan was part of this small group of artists, writers, and musicians, and I think I'm always trying to recreate that group that we had at Jen Powell's apartment in Pratt. And my wife was part of that before we were ever married, and Jay was part of that, and Sufjan.
Don't try to recreate, just appreciate.
Oh yeah, well that was it. It's not recreate, but try to have that same community, because that was the best thing about it, was this community where we encourage each other. Sufjan brought his like solo album he recorded in college, and we're like, why aren't you making music? He was a writer at that point. We just knew him as a writer. Yeah. Like, why aren't you making music? And then like one of his first solo shows is on like the Queen of Peace stage in West Milford, where he's playing Madonna covers, and it's like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And how genuine he was and authentic he was. And he he would do everything from, play Christmas songs at a bar to his original music. And we were just like, oh, this guy's real.
Yeah, he is real. I mean, you can hear, and that's the thing with an artist, you can tell the realness in someone when they create a song. And that's the thing too with music, that you can listen to a full album of music and there can be that one song that is, that's who it is, or that's who they are.
Sure.
That's what I think is pretty awesome. And I think I've said it a bunch of times here, but one of the coolest things I ever got was from one of the earlier interviews I did, where I asked an artist because the sound changed, and he said, he goes, well, I don't think we knew who we were when we made our first album.
Yeah.
So that's why our sound changed. And I never thought about that, because I had always had that old stigma. Gene Simmons had said, you have your entire life to make your first album. Yeah. And you got 6 months to make your second.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Yeah.
That's when things change. And just hearing, well, I don't think we knew who we were. I was like, more people need to hear that. That's important. That's important, Everybody can't think every band is going to be like Radiohead, where every single album is completely different and changes, and everybody says they're amazing, and they are, but they never got shit for doing these abrupt changes where other bands have.
Well, think of Beck. Like, Beck made that. It's one of my favorite albums. Is One Foot in the Grave. It's such a different album for Beck. Well, back and forth. He was hoping to do like a folk album and then some like crazy experimental thing. Even Sufjan just put out like a instrumental like meditations album like this. Well,
Beck's Colors album is a dance club album, and I love it. And I was like, I'm not going to like this.
I mentioned U2 earlier. I love and hate U2 because their albums go all over the place. But I forced myself to listen. I bought every U2 album for a road trip, and I'm like, I'm going to listen to every single one. I was like, every album's got like a couple good songs at least, and then. But it's I don't think we should touch it. Like we should not pigeonhole or want people to only make the one thing. And I think in the reality, it's just like...
That's why I love and hate playlists.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's this idea... And like I said, when I was trying to recreate that community, I have this wonderful community of artists and musicians, writers that I meet with monthly in my neighborhood. That idea of community, it comes with the complications of community, which is... And I think music is such a community builder. Yeah. Like a bonding around music. And that's why I love your podcast on that level. Like the bonding around music... is what creates this community, and even the podcasting world in general creates community. Yeah, everybody's experiencing the common conversation and feels like they're part of it because they're like almost eavesdropping into this awesome, intimate conversation. But they're part of it. The idea of community, and with that comes complications. Sometimes you don't always love what the person says, or you have to, take it, listen a little more than say. It's like, and I think with music, that seems to be a very real thing where. If people don't stop making music, you're going to hear things that are like, is that the same musician? Oh, yeah. But like, it's untouchable because with community, you have to accept people fully.
Which is tough, and people have a hard time with that. The community is awesome. Someone had said about the Hall of Fame edition, they're like, dude, I felt like I was sitting at the table with you guys. It. Just that they're like, I was in the room watching you guys just be assholes and opinionated. And I was like, but that's who we are. And I'm glad that you were able to accept that and feel like you were in the room, because that's what it's about. We're trying to create that you're at the table with us, because it's important.
Which is great. And I mean, that's that episode, like I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is all my old friends. I got to listen to this. And I was like, I've witnessed these conversations in real life at some point. I've definitely desired to hear it again, because I've been kind of, in my new world, for sure. And so I'm like, oh, this is fun. I get to listen in and to be a part of this. So it's definitely an awesome episode. It's awesome, man. I think we're winding down.
Yeah.
I had one more question for you before.
Go ahead.
Just like any advice to people. I know you've kind of come through this thing. How far in now? 8 months? Are you almost
9
in a year?
Months? A year will be August.
Okay.
But,
so just your reflection on like starting this thing after 2.5 years in the waiting. What keeps you motivated? I think just the lessons you've learned. Some of it you've already said, but just any other lessons you've learned doing this thing.
Yeah, I mean the lessons that I've learned are pretty simple. It's not going to be perfect. Yeah. You have to accept imperfection.
Sure.
And accepting the imperfection is, for a perfectionist, is quite hard.
Sure.
Especially someone who has OCD, such as myself, ADD as well, anxiety, social anxiety. I'm a human fucking creator. I really am. And just to be able to accept that things aren't going to be perfect. Yeah. Everyone's not going to like it.
And that doesn't
it's
mean
not for everyone. But it can't take away my passion. And to not obsess over those. I think the greatest advice that I had ever heard was, from the legend himself, Joe Rogan, where I think that's where people go into podcasting because they want to follow a lane like that. But stay off. Don't read any comment. Don't look at downloads. Don't do that. It's human nature to want to know. Yeah. But I don't obsess. I put out an episode and it's out.
Yeah.
The only time I see the downloads is when I upload a new episode.
Sure.
I don't go on it every day because you're just going to kill yourself. Yeah. And it's, if you're doing it for the right reasons, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The comments don't matter. The follows don't matter. The likes don't matter. Yep. If you're doing it for the right reasons, none of that matters. So don't let it matter to you. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned.
Yeah, that's great. And I was going to say, accepting imperfection doesn't mean you're not putting in over 90%.
Yeah.
You're putting in 100%. It's just the reality of being human.
Yeah.
And that's part of why this medium is so cool.
Yeah, it really is. And that's what if I were to tell anybody that was thinking about doing this, and I told you when you were starting, it's not going to be the greatest thing ever. You're going to have those moments and appreciate. Like I said before, when you're trying to recreate, don't recreate, appreciate.
Yeah.
It's,
I like that line too.
It's just appreciate what you've already gone through. Don't ever try to recreate it because things will happen naturally. When you try to recreate something is when you make Frankenstein, right?
Sure.
Caricatures
of a caricature.
Exactly. So just know that if you're doing it for why you want to do it and the right reasons, nothing else really matters. So if you're passionate, just do it.
Couldn't say it better myself. All right, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah. Well, I have my final question, so we can end this with our weekly threes.
Yes.
3 things you're listening to that you would like people to check out. I'm sure you did your research since you listen, and you're not going to pull out a Spotify playlist like most people. But if there's 3 things you're listening to, new, old, whatever, that you would want people to check out.
All right. Well, Beck's One Foot in the Grave. Going to put it out there.
Okay.
Any Postal Service album, which you said there's really that one that I know I keep listening to. I don't remember the name. I gotta say, I want to say Built to Spill. I can't help but say that, but I'm going to throw in really my third one is Screaming Trees, Mark Lanigan solo album. I just think there's such a genuine songwriting and interesting, powerful voice there.
Okay. Screaming Trees, Mark Lanigan, huh? Wow. That's awesome. My 3 for this week are Chamberlain, amazing band. Came out with an album last year called Red Weather. Totally awesome. One of my favorite things in music is watching people mature. Watching a band that came from, they were a hardcore punk band called Split Lip, turned into Chamberlain, went into that emo realm, and now they're creating like awesome, like it's just a mature, almost towards the Tom Petty-ish, and like just an amazing mature sound, and it's awesome to watch that happen. Another band, because I just received my John Bunch poster, but Sensefield. Sensefield is another band that they had one song that was on like a WB TV show, and that's when people found out about him. But John Bunch is no longer with us, but an amazing vocalist. Sensefield was great, and then he went on to sing for Further Seems Forever. All right. So Sensefield, and last but not least, it's funny. One of my favorite artists of all time, lot of people may know this about me. A lot of people may not, but Elvis.
Oh, wow.
So I actually had someone in my house the other day here doing some work, and he saw some of my Elvis stuff. And he goes, "You want to see something?" And then he showed me he had an entire room dedicated to Elvis. Wow. So it puts me back into going to put on my Elvis stuff. And I love the early rock and roll 50s Elvis stuff. Like that's and listen, in the 70s he did have some great songs, but like 50s, the 69 comeback special, I mean Elvis Presley, I mean long live the king. Even though he did steal a lot from the blues guys, but you know what? He also helped get that music out there. So that's where I have to give him credit.
You mentioned the blues, Lightning Hopkins. It's like
Lightning Hopkins is legit, dude. I last year for
Lead Belly. Oh my goodness!
Record Store Day, they did a Lightning Hopkins box set, and that was the one thing I wanted from Record Store Day, and it was the one thing I got. I was really happy.
You know, it's so interesting that like the bands we listened to in the 90s are the introduction to me to folk music, you know, to classic rock, all those, it's like the covers they were doing lead us into these old things. Lead Belly from the
like people you wouldn't know. Remember what was that? Sweet Relief. It was a compilation, but it was doing some woman's songs. Yeah, and like that's where Crazy Mary, Eddie Vedder did Crazy Mary, which is like take the bottle, drink it down. I was like, holy shit! And then it gets you into that older stuff, which is awesome. But why don't you tell everybody on the Hidden Tracks podcast how to find all the stuff for the Stolen Hours?
Sure. www.stolenhourspodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at the Stolen Hours Podcast. Twitter's somewhere out there. I think it's Stolen Hours Podcast 1 or something, or Stolen Hours 1. But either way, mostly the website and Instagram.
Awesome.
And how about for you? How do we follow?
For me, you can go to myhiddentracks.com. Has all of our information up there. We also have merchandise, which I know you got coming soon too, which is pretty cool. You can, if you want to email us, it's myhiddentrack99@gmail. HiddenTracks 1 is our Twitter handle, which we don't have a big thing on Twitter, I guess. It's more the Instagram, which is HiddenTracks99.
Nice.
But yeah, just follow us, and whoever wants to be here, thank you for listening. And
thank
Dennis, this was a long time coming. I'm so happy for what you're doing. I'm happy that I got to help you a little bit get started.
I appreciate all you've done, man. It's been a pleasure to do this too. Thanks so much.
So everybody go out, have a great fucking time.
Thanks again for tuning into the Hidden Tracks podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's show. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at HiddenTracks99. Also, send all your submissions to myhiddentracks99@gmail.com. Tune in next week. You may find your new favorite band. And don't forget to go out and have a great fucking time.